Welcome everybody back in the swing studio here at Barra Golf Club. I'm Mike Newton. We've got another new club review here. This time it's the Cleveland RTX-3 Wedge they've just launched. So obviously Cleveland are mainly wedge producers. They have gone into irons and woods, which they've now sort of come out of. Obviously Shrixon are taking over that department, and Cleveland have gone back to their roots really, which is making quality wedges. Cleveland are probably I think they are, I'm right in saying this, the most sold wedge ever out of all brands across the years. They've been going many years, very much strong on tour, and obviously sell a lot to across the world to golfers. Fantastic looking wedges, really are designed. They're pushing the technologies here now a little bit, which I'm going to talk a little bit about. But the new RTX-3, this is obviously the third generation of the RTX now. This sort of laser milling, RTX milling on the face here to ultimately try and get some maximum control and spin on the golf ball around the green. These are important, the wedges. Obviously there's a lot of loft options. These are your scoring clubs, so it's very often overlooked. We talk about custom fitting. A lot of golfers are keen to get their irons fitted, maybe the driver fitted, and very often overlook the wedges. They just sort of throw some wedges in. Sometimes it's mixed brands, mixed sort of shapes and finishes and shafts, and it's all a little bit of a mixed bag sometimes. So I think getting this gapping correct of different lofts is absolutely crucial, because 125 yards in, you've got to be scoring to make obviously your whole scores better on the golf course. So just talk a little bit about the tech here of the RTX-3. They've made some big changes here really of Cleveland, which they've sort of not really made huge technology changes in the past in a wedge, because it's a very classic shape. It's not a lot of you can do, generally it's a blade head. There's not a lot you can really sort of do with it, but this one is very different. There's a bit of tech here, so I'm just going to go through that with you. First of all, what they've done here is they've shortened the hosel. So the hosel on wedges have always been a heavy part of the golf club. So what that does with a lot of weight here, it pulls the centre of gravity towards the heel. So as you're hitting middle, and what the test that Cleveland have done over many thousands of golfers is more golfers miss it slightly in the toe with a wedge. So with the centre of gravity being in the heel, you're missing that CG spot. So it gives sometimes inconsistent spin and distance numbers. So what they've done here, Cleveland, is they've actually shortened the hosel by a centimetre, and they've put in a hidden cavity inside the hosel here, which has saved 2 grams of weight. So that weight they've saved there has allowed them to move the CG more towards the middle of the club face. Okay, so if you're hitting that CG more in the centre, basically, it creates a hell of a lot more consistency on your spin, launch, and desired distance. And obviously that's what wedges are all about, is hitting a number with some control of spin. So it'd be interesting maybe just see how consistent that is. I'm going to test that in a minute. Also what they've done, they've taken a little bit of leaf out of the Shrixon irons with a VT sole, and they've introduced this into the RTX-3. There's different grinds here. So basically this little sort of ridge that runs down the sole of the club, this ridge, or the peak of that ridge, moves forwards and more back from the leading edge, depending on what grind and what bounce you're looking for. So this, for instance, is an MG or VMG. So V is the V sole, MG is mid grind, which is a 2 dot, and that's indicated on this left hand side of the club here. So 1 dot is a low grind, and then the 3 dot is a FG full grind, so more bounce basically. So that really depends on your turf conditions you're playing in, but also your angle of attack into the golf ball. Some people are steeper, which may need, or we sometimes call those diggers. They need a bit more of a bounce, so maybe more of the full bounce, the 3 dot bounce option there. But that's, again, this is all to do with coming in and getting fitted and seeing what those numbers are for you individually here. But yeah, interested there with that grind. So basically with that VT sole, again, it reduces drag through the turf. So obviously you're going to get a lot of interaction with the turf with the wedge. So the VT sole makes it, keeps the wedge moving through consistency. So there's no drop off of, or as minimal drop off of speed as the club enters the turf. So again, this is all helping ball speed, spin, and hitting a number, which is crucial. Okay, revamp the groove slightly, so the laser milling between the grooves. I don't know if you can see that here. I'm getting really close. If you get the right angle here, it's hard to see on here. Oh, there we go. Just about see it. You can probably just see that circular milling there. So that is the RTX circular milling. You've got milling between each groove, and then you've obviously got your maximum depth of groove there to control the golf ball and get some spin around the green. Okay, this particular one, there's a lot of shaft options available, again, through fitting. Cleveland do a wedge fitting cart, which is fantastic. We've got one here. So a lot of different heads. These are all screwed in, which is why the hosel is a bit separated like that, because they all bolt in. And they offer a few different shaft options. You've got dynamic gold spinner. And this is a new one they offered, which looks pretty funky. This is the Modus 3 115 wedge shaft, which is actually steel, but it's coloured white. It looks pretty cool, actually. Really goes well nice with the club. So I've got that one in the club here. This is a 56° 11 bounce I've got in my hand here, which is a mid grind, so a 2-dot bouncer, which is more of a standard bounce. So I'm just going to hit a few shots in here, give you a little bit of feedback on how it feels. We'll look at some numbers on GC2 and just see how that spin number's like, and then I'll probably do some separate videos, maybe just comparing that against last year's version and the RTX 2.0, and see if there's any differences of spin and control and consistency between the two. Okay, let's try and hit a few shots now. Okay, so here's a quick look at the RTX-3 from a playing position, just with that white shaft. It looks pretty funky. I mean, this is more obviously visual here as you're looking down, but here's a little bit more of a closer look at the actual head here. So please do ignore the metal ferrule here, because this is my fitting iron. Okay, but obviously you can see a very nice rounded sort of shape there. Very little sort of kinking at the hosel there as the reed edge meets the hosel, but very nice rounded look. Just have a quick look around the head and more of a close-up action, so you can see this is the VMG, the mid grind, which is the 2-dot bounce. You can see them 2 dots there. Okay, there's a satin finish, which looks very nice. There's the VT sole. Just get it from this angle slightly there. You can see the peak of the sole there, so that moves forwards and backwards from that leading edge depending on which grind you're going into. You can see this is a 56 with 11. Okay, I'll just give you a little bit of a closer up of the face. That's probably a good angle there. You can probably see that circular milling on that toe end, and that circles round, and that milling changes depending on which loft you've got. So obviously your more lofted irons, wedges, you're going to generally open the face. This milling is positioned so when you open the face, they're more square onto the contact of the golf ball for maximum grip on the ball. Got your laser milling in between, really sort of see that closer up there. It looks fantastic. Okay, so as I present the club down by the golf ball there, it's a very nice shape. I mean, Cleveland have always done very nice shapes here. I think I'm just going to get a little picture up for you in a minute, actually. Just compare it against the last year's RTX 2.0. This looks a slightly smaller blade length from heel to toe. Okay, but it doesn't by any means look like a bit daunting to sort of strike. I think the shape of it is lovely. It's a very rounded sort of shape there. This finish they've got on it now, this satin chrome they call it, so it's not polished, it's just like a satin finish, which looks great. It's definitely an improvement from last year's version. You know, I was an RTX 2.0 player myself, and I love this look. They do offer it in a black satin, which Cleveland is saying they've redeveloped massively, so it doesn't mark or scratch anywhere as near. Sometimes you play a lot of bunker shots, or you know, obviously little stones, they scratch the sole, and on that black it shows up quite a bit, where they're saying now it's far more durable than previous models. So it does sit very pretty behind the golf ball. I've always been a fan of Cleveland wedges myself. So I've got myself set out here, 102 yards, got me 56 degrees, so it's a sort of fullish sand wedge here. I'm just going to hit full shots and just give you a bit of feedback on the feel. Little bit pushy, that felt lovely though. Bit of action. Yeah, just pushing again. This isn't the right lie angle for me. This is probably going to highlight this. This is actually a standard length shaft. I generally play half-inch longer, and it's actually a standard lie here, so for me it's going to deliver it a little bit toe down, so it's probably why I'm losing these shots a little bit to right of target, because the lie is not perfect for me, for my actual spec being 6'5". That feels really solid. I think the biggest thing that sort of feels there, it feels, what's the word? Maybe quick through the ball, if that makes sense, or very smooth through the ball. Smooth as in, it's not a digging action. I mean, I'm tall, so I generally do produce a sort of like a very steeper angle of attack, really. So when I get a wedge in my hand, I generally take in a bit of a big divot after the golf ball. This, bear in mind, I'm hitting off a mat here, so obviously when I get that diggier action, it's a bit more of a thuddy sort of action into the mat. I don't sort of feel that with this. Maybe that's that sole doing what it's supposed to be doing. Less drag and less interaction there, and I sort of feel that a little bit. It's quite interesting, really. You know, sometimes you read these things, you think, yeah, you know, am I going to feel that? Is it actually going to do a lot of difference? But I think I'm feeling that a little bit here. I'm just going to hit a few more. Loving the look of it, really good. Cut. Okay, yeah, that feels fantastic. I think definitely prefer that against last year's 2.0, me personally. Love the look. The feel is great through it. As I say, it feels so much better going into the obviously off the mat here, but into the turf, it's going to feel a bit more faster or more consistent is probably the word, which is exactly what Cleveland is sort of pitching this to be honest. So it feels quite solid. Maybe that's a little bit to do with the CG placing being more central now. So if you're hitting the CG, it's just obviously going to reduce any twisting, create a more solid feel and more consistent numbers. Talking numbers, let's have a quick look at those data, see what the spin's like. Produced with that 56 degree, obviously more of a full shot. Obviously this will change depending on loft and length of swing and different shot distances we're trying to hit. Okay, let's have a quick look. Okay, so there's the shot pattern there. So you can see target is that black and white polishing. I've just missed everything a little bit to the right there quite consistently. Probably more to do with that lie angle for me. I need it a little bit more upright with a bit of length in the shaft, to be honest. So that's probably just getting them pushing a little bit right. So there's a dispersion ring on the left-hand side. So let's have a quick look at some numbers here. So ball speed there 83.3, launching at 31.4, and spin number at 9285. Now you can probably just look down those numbers there. You can see there's a bit of a drop off there on that 7.5, 7.9. That went 103 yards. So what's probably happened there is I caught that a little bit heavy. Okay, so off a mat, what that does, it just drops a bit of spin off it, and it will do that little bit of a turf, but it does a little bit more on a mat, so it just drops a little bit of spin off. So that's probably why that's dropped down. That's more strike as opposed to the club itself. But the other numbers are very sort of consistent, really, which I'm quite pleased about. So they're pitching out on average at 98, which is around my sort of 100 mark for a fairly full sandwich sort of shot. So fairly decent numbers. Quite happy with those. Okay, so there we have it, the RTX-3 from Cleveland, a very nice looking wedge there. They do a cavity one, but then they've decided not to release that in the UK. So there's only the blade available in this satin finish and the black finish. There is talk about a raw head coming out, so the ones that would go rusty, the raw finish, but I think that's not been confirmed yet whether they will do. If they do come out, I believe it's going to be maybe February 2017 before they come out, if they do come out. So, but to be honest, from previous model, the 2.0, the satin blade was by far the biggest seller. So that's probably the reason why they've done that in the UK and Europe. So, but yeah, cracking looking wedge. Go and test them out. If you can get to a Cleveland wedge fitting centre, which we are one here at Barra Golf Club, you've got all the loft options available to try from 48 all the way through to 60 with different grinds, and then obviously the different shaft options. So obviously if you're going to try these, is do a gap test with your probe on a launch monitor or a fitter on a launch monitor. You've got to do that. It's so crucial to get your gapping right as you transition from your set of irons into your pitching wedge and then go into maybe a gap wedge, a sand wedge, possibly a lob wedge, depending on how many wedges you want to carry. It's so important to get the gapping right. Your 46-degree wedge to a 50, to a 54, to a 58, or whether you went 46, 52, 56, 60. Sometimes on paper those gaps look good, but in reality what you actually hit can be a little bit different. So this is where you've got to get on a launch monitor to get this tested. We offer this service here when you're buying some wedges to make sure you are getting the gapping right, depending on how many number of wedges you want to carry to hit certain gaps. Okay, I'll probably do a separate video on that, maybe just do a little gap testing session, maybe on myself, or I might get my assistant Joe in on this, and hit some with his wedge, and then gap it all in there and see some different pitch numbers on the GC2 here. Okay, so there we have it. Cleveland RTX-3 wedge, cracking wedge. Get out there and try it, get fitted, and hopefully you get your scores coming down. Like the video, please click the like button, share it around with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. We'll be in touch. Thank you.